this whole concept of I just am going to reach everybody because it's such a good project or it's such a good film or it's so important, everyone wants to see it. I think that's a real mistake. How do you speak to people through film and video? The whole concept of build it and they will come kind of doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't work is because there's just an endless way of making films. And, there's no right or wrong. It's creative expression, but there are more successful and less successful ways to cut through. So I guess the starting point for that is really about defining your audience. So how do you start that process of defining your audience?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the first step for any project is you've got to actually figure out who you're talking to and what you're trying to tell them. And there's quite a few different ways you can go about it. But this whole concept of I just am going to reach everybody because it's such a good project or it's such a good film or it's so important, everyone wants to see it. I think that's a real mistake. You've really got to niche down, and I think people really resist the idea of niching down because I think that actually is really limiting. But we've found the exact opposite with our films. I mean, if you take Conquering Cancer that we're releasing at the moment, it's about cervical cancer, which is a women's health issue. And the core audience, if you defined it really broadly, you'd say it's for women.
Is it useful to kind of have that psychographic where you get it down to almost like you're imagining your audience as an actual individual person, so they are a person of a specific age and interest?
Look, I think when you're talking about film projects, that's not really helpful unless it's a marketing thing. That's a real marketing thing. Yeah. And that whole avatar concept kind of came around, back in the 70s when there was 3 TV channels and 6 magazines, and you had to be so specific to talk to one person to make sure that you could get through to that person in the ad break. Yeah. And they weren't ducked off to the bathroom. But that's not the case these days. People have got, 600,000 different ways of consuming hundreds of thousands of videos at any given moment. So, your audience is a real person, and it's not really helpful to think about them as being one person because it's more about what do they think.
And is it also about then, if it's a range of people, then is it about your ability then to strategically target communities and interest groups that are going to contain a lot of people that match that sort of demographic?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you take it back to the example of Conquering Cancer, which is for women, it's a women's cancer, that's how many women on this planet? Like over 3 billion?
More than half.
So if you've got 3 billion women, that's not a niche audience, but you can't talk to 3 billion women. It's just not possible. So you've got to get more specific than that. So then you start to really talk about, well, what are their age of these women? Who really needs to hear this story? Who are the women who are really impacted by this particular disease? And where do they hang out? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they not online at all? Are they in different places? So you've got to really kind of think about who they are and where they are, and then you can kind of start to niche down and figure out how to communicate with them.
So I think if we're talking about why film, there's lots of ways that you can communicate. You can do it through still photography. You can do all types of written communication. You can do, verbal or videoed presentations. I think the thing about why film or video, it really comes down to how distilled the message is, and that's why it cuts through in a really efficient way. So there's something about the process of needing to plan out your video communications that automatically distills it down and structures it in a way that makes it very palatable. And then you're layering in the visuals, which we know are much more memorable. So you're combining a more efficiently better structured message with visuals that kind of make it more memorable and bring it to life. And I think that's where the impact really is. So sometimes something that you could say in one format that may take you pages or many minutes and potentially lose the audience at different places. With film or video, you're likely to contain it into the minimum amount of time to make the greatest impact.
And I think when you combine that really strong imagery with some text or even narration, you can convey so much in such a short period of time, and it's really efficient, I guess, is the way you could explain it.
It is, and it's multi-sensory. So I think at the point when you're bringing in graphics, animation, music, things that emote, you're suddenly creating a more multi-sensory, multi-dimensional experience, which just creates more connection, more empathy often. And ultimately that becomes more powerful and more memorable.
Yeah, more memorable, definitely. You're far more likely to remember the feeling you get from a film or a video than you are from, I mean, it depends how good the writing is, but, you know, a video tends to stay with you much longer than a blog or just an image on Facebook or something.
It's more remarkable too. You know, Seth Godin talks about how remarkable a particular communication is, meaning how likely someone is to remark on it. And that's the thing about film and video. It punches well above its weight compared to other content in terms of how remarkable it is, how much engagement you'll get in terms of sharing, comments, likes, follows, and ultimately impact.
Defining your audience, getting really clear on the messaging, you know, finding the visuals that really marry with that messaging is the critical part to really connecting with your audience through video and storytelling.
So hopefully there are a few ingredients there that give you an idea about why film or video is a great way to engage your audience and why you might choose that as your medium.
There's so much to unpack, and I'm sure this has given you heaps of ideas, and you probably want to know a little bit more. So you can head over to moonshine.agency. We've written lots of blogs with video content to go with it that can really help you on your filmmaking journey. So please head over there and check them out.